Hello everybody! Welcome or welcome if you're new to the channel of your favorite, or soon-to-be favorite, drunken bookworm twink supreme. If you love books, and if you love seeing twinks talk about them, I suggest you find this button and finger it. Like, if you're bored by seeing hairless young men get fucking railed on Pornhub, then perhaps you'd want to stick around and see one talking about a book instead. Because books are sexy too, okay? Some context, okay? Some context. As a majority of you know, especially those of you who were subscribed back when I made this fucking video, I am a diehard Riley Sager fan. None of his books have gotten lower than a 4-star rating from me. So when this book came out, I was stoked. I got the book, I read the book, I vlogged my reading experience of the book, and overall, my reaction was, what the fuck? So that being said, and I can't show any labels on here, bring out the super special fun juice, and let's fucking do this. Alright, okay, so I am literally just gonna put this out there. If you have not read this book, you might not want to watch this video because I'm gonna be spoiling the shit out of this book. I'm literally gonna be telling you everything that happened. Also, for all intents and purposes, I just need to put this out there. I did not hate the book. Like, I didn't give it 1 star. Actually, okay, let me get into some positives first, because there are some good things in this book, believe it or not. The song Come As You Are by Nirvana is mentioned because, did I tell you, this book is set in the 90s. The only reason this book is set in the 90s is because if smartphones and Wi-Fi were a thing, am I just saying Wi-Fi as if it's something in the fucking air? If those two things were a thing, she would have survived the night on page 3. And this would be a 3-page book. And it just baffles me that this book was set in the 90s because pretty much the entire thing takes place in one car. Like, I can imagine why you would set a movie like Captain Marvel in the 90s and show, like, you know, a blockbuster and other stuff you'd see in the 90s. This book literally is only set in the 90s because Sager needed her to not be able to have a cell phone. Literally, that's it. That's literally it. Come As You Are is a real good song. Nirvana is a real good band. And if they ever make a movie about this book, we are at least guaranteed a good soundtrack, so. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the positives. Okay, so if this book is your fave and you can't handle opinions, I suggest now is when you click out. I also suggest not clicking on a video that says fucking rant review. What are you doing? So we start off by meeting our main character, Charlie, and we learn that both her parents were killed tragically in a car accident when she was very young. And as a result, she developed this coping mechanism where her mind would see movies. Like, literally, she would hallucinate things, and she would make the real world more cinematic. But literally, this condition of hers just feels like something that was thrown in there so we could have something to gaslight her with. Also, there's a serial killer killing people on the campus called the Campus Killer, and the latest victim of the serial killer was Charlie's best friend, Maddie. So because of all this trauma, she decides to leave the school early, leave the semester, and hitchhike her way back home. And because the stranger who is offering to drive her is vaguely attractive, she instantly comes to the conclusion that he's probably a real nice man. I swear, like, this is a huge problem. Like, whenever somebody's attractive, they get a pass. 50 Shades of Grey. So she jumps to conclusions like an idiot, and she takes his word on everything and doesn't ask him much beyond his name. Also, we learned that this girl's a film buff, and you guys, I'm about to sound like a real bitch right now, so strap in your seatbelt. So when I was bashing her taste in movies for my vlog, I felt bad sounding gatekeeper-ish, but then I forgot that this line was in the book, which I'm gonna read to you right now. So she's describing why she loves her boyfriend so much, and she says she liked his sense of humor and that he didn't care about movies, which seemed refreshingly foreign to her. It was a far cry from the Godfather-obsessed man-children who populated most of her film classes. End quote. Godfather-obsessed man-children. Okay, I mean, I don't feel bad bashing this bitch's taste anymore. She's like, ooh, I'm not one of the boys, but ooh, I'm not one of the girls either, because she had the attention span to sit through all 4 fucking hours of Gone with the Wind. But literally every single movie mentioned in this book is just some old American film that pretty much everyone you know like has general Trivial Pursuit knowledge of. And she doesn't bring up a single foreign film that has influenced any of these American movies that she's alluding to. Like, she never brings up directors like Zhang Yimou, Wong Kar-wai, Akira Kurosawa, who, by the way, influenced some of the best movies ever made, was a huge influence for Sergio Leone, was a huge influence to George Lucas, not mentioned at all. Like, even people like, you know, Michael Haneke, Lars von Trier, the list goes on. Like, her calling herself a film buff is like hearing a straight film bro dude saying that he's an LGBT ally because he enjoyed watching Blue is the Warmest Color. Just I'm gonna need another one. Okay, anyway, point being, if I had to talk about movies with her, I'd probably be very bored because you can only have so many conversations about how good Psycho is. Now, something I love the most about Riley Sager's books is the way he sets up a story. Now, the setup for this story is one of the dumbest setups I have ever read from a thriller. So we know that she has been having hallucinations. Yes, she has. And she takes these pills. We don't know specifically what the pills do. We're just told that they are orange pills and white pills and that she takes them for bullshit. She can't sleep or some bullshit like that. And the book literally opens up with her chucking the pills. She throws away the medication that prevents her from hallucinating. And I was just like, okay, she's fucked. Look at these optics for a while. Let me just put this into perspective for you. 1, there's a killer killing people on campus. 2, Charlie's best friend was a recent victim from this killer, meaning this guy could be targeting anybody. 3, Charlie saw her best friend the night she was murdered. She was unable to identify the man who her best friend was with, given the time of death, because she was hallucinating a movie. 4, these meds are the only things that prevent her from having these hallucinations. She acknowledges this multiple times. 5, she's getting into a random car with a random stranger who claims he works at the school. She did absolutely nothing to verify this person's claim. So you'd think that this woman would need to be vigilant and have her guard up at all times, and her solution is to get into a car with a random stranger while there is a killer on the loose. A killer that most likely saw her face because she was there the freaking night that Maddie got killed, and her first order of business is to throw away the pills that could prevent her from hallucinating. Excuse me, but what the f— we learned that this guy's name is Josh. Now, 2 things, okay? So first thing is, Josh is wearing the exact same outfit that he was wearing the day that he offered to drive her. That outfit just so happens to be the most on-the-nose school spirit, school logo on it. When somebody that you don't recognize initially that quick shows that much school spirit, you know that something is off. Bitch, it's pretty obvious that
she doesn't even go here.
Second thing is, when he puts her luggage in the trunk, he positions himself in an angle as if he were hiding something inside the trunk, like a creep. Now, does she, out of, I don't know, common sense, at least ask to check where her luggage is going to make sure that there isn't like a, I don't know, fucking dead body in there? Nope. And by the way, at this point, when the shit is being loaded into the trunk, like, at this point, she's still in the school. She can literally just bail out anytime. But she's actually just like, I feel like tempting fate today. So she's in the car with Josh and she admits to seeing movies in her head. She admits to someone who could possibly be the killer that she has this condition that he could potentially use to gaslight her with. And she does so after openly admitting on the inside that this guy is pretty sketchy. This level of stupidity is frankly embarrassing. So at this point in the car ride, Charlie has a flashback and she starts to remember the kind of friend that Maddie was to her. She's like this theater person and she keeps Charlie around so Charlie can like essentially compliment her on how amazing she is all the time and be her fucking cheerleader. She's an extrovert, Charlie is an introvert, and she guilt trips Charlie into like going to these parties with her by saying like, oh, you're gonna be missing out in your college life, and oh, I'm just trying to help you have fun, you're not having fun. And then in the party she ditches Charlie to make out with boys. Like, fuck you. Anyway, fuck Maddie. Maddie is a bitch. So while they are in the car, Josh has this idea to play 20 questions. Now basically 20 questions is when you ask somebody 20 questions and they give you yes or no answers and then you guess what they are thinking. So she asks him a bunch of questions, blah blah blah. He's thinking of a tooth. Why is this important? Because the campus killer would kill these girls and then he would take one of their teeth out and keep it as a reward. So the fact that Josh was thinking of a tooth of all things for 20 questions is a bit sketch. Not to Charlie though, because she stays in the car. So she freaks out and we are treated to one of the 50,000 scenes when she feels the door handle. So they stop at a toll booth and Charlie's still jacking off the door handle for some reason instead of actually doing anything that could, like, you know, escape and survive the night. So they get to the toll booth and sure enough, the gaslighting begins. And Josh tells her that the previous 20 minutes where they had played 20 questions didn't happen. Now, she could have easily gotten out at the toll booth and maybe found somebody to call the cops for her, or just waited there until a cab or something passed by. But she doesn't do any of that. She was like, nah, I'm gonna stick it out with Josh. And honestly, the writing is just so on the nose. Like, She suspects at this point that she's getting gaslit, and then Riley Sager proceeds to tell you the plot of the movie Gaslight, like, fucking... So they stop at this rest stop, and Charlie goes to the bathroom, and in the bathroom there's another girl, and Charlie, who was so sure of herself just a minute ago, let me just check my notes, approaches a complete stranger in the bathroom and tells her that she thinks she's in a car with a killer and that she's off her meds. And then she concludes this by saying, "Can I come into your car? Can you help me get out of here?" If you were that woman, would you help Charlie out? If you were somebody and somebody in a rest stop showed up and was like, "Hi, I'm off my meds, I think I'm with a killer, we've been driving for hours," would you help her? I would call the cops for you and that's it. So the woman reacts like anyone who isn't off her fucking meds would and tells Charlie to like, no, fuck off. And I knew at this point that Sager was trying so hard to make us suspect that Josh was the killer. And at this point I just assumed that the plot twist was gonna be that Charlie had killed Maddie and that her family suspected this and they were just hiring somebody to like validate that and get dirt on her for Maddie. Like, it was so obvious that Josh wasn't the killer that it would have been a surprising plot twist if Josh was actually the killer. So blah blah blah, Josh plays Come As You Are by Nirvana, great song, and Charlie's brain for some reason switches on and she realizes that there's no logical way that they could have traveled in the distance they did in the time it took to finish that song. And yay, someone common sense, applause, yay. Now here's when stuff starts to happen. So they go to this diner and Charlie decides to use one of the payphones to call the cops. And Josh shows up, she lies that she was about to call her boyfriend, and Josh gives her money to do so, so she calls her boyfriend, his name is Robbie, I believe, and she explains to him that like, hey, I'm in a sticky situation, we took a long detour. Now in the diner, there's this old waitress who notices that Charlie looks agitated, and she purposely spills coffee on her to get Charlie alone into the bathroom so she can ask her, are you okay? Now, what does Charlie do? Does she tell the waitress to call the cops? Nope. The waitress says a line like, women should help other women, and in that moment, Charlie's like, you know what? Screw the cops. I'm gonna kill Josh myself because he could go on to kill more women, so I'm gonna put myself in danger, gonna kill a man who's 5 times bigger than me in the middle of fucking nowhere without a plan. Disgusting. So then, blah blah blah, Charlie leaves with Josh, and she tells Josh she knows who he is, and then she stabs him, but not before he tries to cuff her up, and then she keeps the handcuffs. Why she keeps the handcuffs, I don't know, but it comes into good use. And then here is when the plot twist started to happen, and the book just, if it was going okay for now, this was when it turned into a dumpster fire. So she runs back to the diner, and Marge, the waitress, is still there, and she's being all nice and shit, and until she suddenly, out of nowhere, knocks Charlie out with chloroform, and I brought some props to demonstrate this. Anyway, because apparently Marge, the waitress, is Maddie's grandma. Motherfucker. What the fuck? And her plan is the dumbest fucking villain plan I've ever fucking read, honestly. Maybe not the dumbest, but it's up there. Like, she's up there. Her plan was to take Charlie to this abandoned place and torture her into remembering what Maddie's killer looked like, because she knew that Charlie was there that night when Maddie went off with that strange man. So literally, this grandma, who was so sweet and who we learn apparently has cancer and her hair is thinning out and she has like 2 weeks to live, suddenly turns into fucking Jigsaw. The plan is to torture someone into remembering a face that she saw for a couple of seconds one night in the dark. So apparently Josh and Robbie followed Granny Marge's car to this abandoned place. Not together, but like they both made their way to that place. So while Marge is like about to torture Charlie, Josh comes out and Marge, in a fit of panic, shoots him. Out of like, you know, shock and terror, she drops this gas lamp and sets the abandoned place they're in on fire, or like slowly it starts to like, you know, burn. So Charlie runs out and Granny chases her, and Robbie comes out and whacks Granny with a crowbar, but as he whacks her, she gets to shoot him in the shoulder. Because she shoots him in the shoulder, Charlie has to be the one to drive his car. They leave the grandma there, because she was like, you know, whacked with a metal thing. And Charlie and Josh go into Josh's car. So when they're in the car, Charlie opens up the glove compartment to get a map so she can figure out how to exit this place. And she sees a jewelry box, or like a little thing where you can keep a wedding ring in. And she's like all like, oh, blushing, like, oh, he's gonna propose to me on this night that I was kidnapped and almost tortured. And she opens it up and outpour some ivory teeth. Because Robbie, who is pretty much absent this entire book, is the campus killer. And his motivation for being a killer, a literal serial killer, was so unconvincing and dumb. I just wanted to throw my phone on the wall because that's where I read my book. If you've seen the film Cruel Intentions, just imagine Ryan Phillippe's character but as a serial killer. Also, his reason for turning into a literal serial killer is because he wanted to kill all these girls because he, quote, thought they were deluded attention seekers who thought they were so special even though they weren't, like. And then he's like, he tells Charlie, do you remember the first night I saw you in the library? Yeah, I wanted to kill you until you proved to me that you were not like other girls because of your taste in movies, which is so amazing. So Charlie locks the door, she drives off the bridge, she lands into a lake, she cuffs Josh to the car, she takes his pliers and pulls a tooth out, and she swims out of the car. So then we kind of hard cut to her in the hospital. She gives the tooth to Marge and is like, I found the killer just now, here's the proof. Apparently Granny Marge is in the hospital and so is Josh. Now, how the hell was Josh, who was shot and stabbed and knocked out and completely out of commission, able to make it out of the hospital? In an earlier scene, the Granny actually tells Charlie that she helped get him out. This woman, who has brittle hair, who can barely stand up, who is described to be older than Juno in The Wrong Family, pulls out a giant muscular bounty hunter from a building. How was she physically able to do that? So then there is this italics portion at the end where we learn that this thing we just read was adapted to film. Apparently a movie producer liked Charlie's Survive the Night story so much that he made a movie out of it, and the book ends with her watching the film and critiquing it, and that's that. Just kidding. Here's the part that really made me scream! So she leaves the studio and she gets into this car with a man, and the man is Josh, and we learned that she and Josh have been married for 6 years. After he kidnapped her, lied to her, gaslit her, handcuffed her, took her to a woman that nearly tortured her to death, she stabbed him, and what's the message of the story? Marry him. I'm not kidding, that's literally how this book ends. And my camera's about to die. I am about done filming this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like and comment and subscribe. Share this video with your friends, and I will love you forever. I hope to see you in future videos, but until then, take care. I lose myself.